Picture two identical investors. Same salary, same index fund, same 20 years, widely different endings ahead of them. One ends up with $840,000. The other has just $61,000. Same everything. The only difference? One of them got bored in year 6. Want to guess which mistake killed returns? Here's the thing. Your boring index fund quietly wins while you refresh the app hoping something exciting happens. 90% of people quit before the payoff hits. Not because the math failed, the middle feels empty. You check your account, you check the world. You wonder if you're an idiot for still doing this. Here's the rule everyone believed and why it's actually a trap disguised as wisdom. Repeated everywhere online today. You've heard it 1,000 times. Stay consistent, keep going, trust the process, never ever look away. Every finance guru repeats it like a prayer. On paper, it sounds obvious, boring, almost insultingly simple. But nobody tells you what consistent actually feels like from the inside. Inside, it does not feel like winning. It feels like waiting for a bus that might never arrive, in the rain, with a dying phone. Most people don't realize the phrase "stay consistent" hides one giant invisible assumption underneath every motivational finance post. The assumption is that excitement equals progress, that if you're doing the right thing, you should feel it. You should see the number climb every month. You should get a little dopamine hit for being disciplined. When you don't feel that, your brain quietly concludes something is broken. The market, the strategy, or you. Then the algorithm makes it worse. Every app on your phone is designed to make boredom feel dangerous. Red numbers, flashing charts, notifications claiming your portfolio moved 2% as if that's a genuine emergency. Trading apps literally use casino colors. The whole environment is engineered to convince you sitting still is risky, that doing nothing is losing. So the average investor expects a straight line up and to the right. They imagine wealth like a paycheck. Work, get paid. Save, get richer. Linear, predictable, fair. Simple math. But wealth doesn't grow like a paycheck. It grows like a plant you can't see for years. And then a single chart breaks the whole intuition. Look at any compound interest curve. Really look. For the first several years, it's almost flat. You barely see it moving. The line looks broken. Then somewhere around year 10 or 12, it starts to bend gently upward, gaining real momentum finally. And by year 20, it's shooting almost straight up. Roughly 80% of gains arrive in the end. 80% of the payoff comes in the final third of your investing life. Read that again slowly, which means the first 2/3 of your journey looks and feels exactly like you're standing completely still. Years 5 through 15 are what I call the dead zone. Nothing looks like it's happening yet. This is where the math is quietly doing enormous work behind the scenes. Invisible but powerful compounding. Your dividends are reinvesting, your base is growing, interest is starting to earn interest on interest itself. But visually, on your dashboard, it looks like you're grinding for scraps. Progress feels non-existent, painfully slow. You put in 15,000 this year and your balance went up by 17,000. Big deal, right? You could have made more picking up a side gig on weekends. That's how it feels emotionally. That's the exact moment 90% of people quit. Not at the start, not at the crash, the middle. They pull money out, chase a hot stock, try a new strategy, and tell themselves they're being smart. Nobody ever explains the math up front. Nobody says the first decade is going to feel like absolutely nothing. That's not a bug, that's the entire design. But why does the human brain literally hate this shape? Let me explain. Your brain was not built for compound curves. It was built for immediate feedback. You throw a spear, you hit or miss. You eat a berry, you live or get sick. Reward now, punishment now. Compounding is the exact opposite. Do the right thing today, get rewarded 15 years later. Your brain hates that. It rejects it. It literally cannot hold that timeline as motivating for 1 second. On top of that, you have hedonic adaptation, the fancy term for whatever you have quickly becoming normal. When your portfolio hits 10,000, you're thrilled. 6 months later, that feels like nothing. You want 50. Hit 50, you want 200. The goalpost moves faster than your actual progress, no matter what you do. Even when you're winning, it doesn't feel like winning. It feels like running on a treadmill, speeding up. Then add the dopamine loops. Trading apps are optimized like slot machines. Swipe down to refresh. Green flash, red flash. Little confetti animation when you buy something. That is not investing. That is behavioral design. It trains you to associate action with progress, the exact opposite of what compounding actually rewards over time. Then add social comparison. Your friend just made 40% on some meme stock. Your cousin bought rental property. Some guy on the internet posting his Lambo. Meanwhile, you're sitting on a boring portfolio that grew 9%. You feel dumb. You feel slow. You feel like you're missing the real game. Here's the actual trap. You are only seeing everybody's wins. You are not seeing the 90% who quietly blew up. Survivor bias makes the flat middle look like personal failure. And then loss aversion kicks in hard. When the market goes sideways for 2 years, which happens often, your brain treats that as loss. Not because you lost money, because you lost time. Time you'll never get back. The pain stacks up. Your brain starts whispering, maybe there's something better. Maybe you're wasting your prime years. Maybe boredom is risk. That whisper is the most expensive voice you will ever listen to. Now here's the twist you missed. Here's what nobody wants to say out loud. The boring middle is not a phase you must survive. It is the actual product you are buying. When you invest long-term, you are not paying for excitement. You are paying for time. You're paying for the calendar itself to do the compounding work quietly. The boredom isn't a side effect. The boredom is what you're buying. The boredom itself is the machine. Excitement in investing is almost always a tax. Every time you feel a rush, somebody charges you. Trading fees, spreads, bad timing, taxes on short-term gains, emotional decisions made at the worst possible moment. The more emotionally engaged you are with your portfolio, the worse it tends to actually perform over time. The average investor underperforms their own funds by 2 to 4% per year, purely because of behavior. They buy high, sell low, and call it strategy. That's the real hidden cost of chasing every rush. Here's the difference between real wealth and looking wealthy. Looking wealthy is loud. The car, the watch, the brag. Real wealth is silent. It's a boring account statement that quietly doubled while you were busy raising kids. Now here's the killer part. Every time you quit and restart investing, you reset the entire compounding clock. That's not a metaphor. Compound growth is exponential, meaning the last years matter far more than the first. Invest 10 years, quit, restart 5 years later. You didn't lose 5 years, you lost the tail. You lost the end of the curve where the biggest gains would have lived. A hidden cost, invisible. The hidden cost of restarting every 3 years is enormous. Steady investors end up wildly ahead of restarters. Same money in, radically different money out. Project this over 20 years and the gap becomes absolutely absurd. Let me introduce you to 3 people. Same salary, same income, same starting age. Watch what happens next. Meet Anne. She's boring. Painfully boring. At 25, she sets up an automatic contribution into a diversified index fund. $500 every month. She doesn't touch it. She checks the balance once a year, on her birthday. She ignores finance news and hot tips. She missed the crypto boom, the meme stocks, and every crash. She did nothing for 25 years. By 50, she has around $600,000 quietly waiting. And here's the thing. She barely thought about money the entire time. That's real wealth working silently. Ben is smart, or thinks he is. He also starts at 25, saving $500 a month. But Ben reads, Ben watches, Ben changes his strategy every 4 years. Year 4, he shifts everything into tech. Year 8, panics into bonds. Year 12, tries active trading. Year 16, real estate. Year 20, back to index funds. Every switch costs fees, taxes, and bad timing. By 50, Ben has $300,000, half of Anne's total. Same money in. He was more informed, more engaged, more active, and he ended up with far less. Then there's Chris. Same setup as N. 500 monthly, same index fund. Then year 9. Dead zone. Markets flat. Balance feels tiny. Brother-in-law brags about the rental property. Chris decides investing is a scam. He pulls the money out, buys a truck, takes a trip, starts a side hustle that fizzles out. He'll get back to it once things settle down. Life happens. He never does. He never restarts investing. By 50, Chris has almost nothing invested. Maybe 40,000 in a rushed catch-up account started at 42. 3 people, same income, same start. N, 600,000, Ben, 300,000, Chris, 40,000. Here's the wild part. N was the least stressed of them. She spent the least time thinking about money. She read the fewest articles. She had the fewest opinions. She wasn't smart. She was just uninterrupted. The number gap will make you rethink your last decision. If you want smarter money moves, subscribe. Let's look at the gap. The average quitter abandons the plan mid-journey and leaves 60% behind. 60%. Gone. Not lost to a crash, not lost to fees, lost to their own decision to stop. The boring middle, the part everyone hates and quits on, accounts for roughly 70% of your lifetime returns. Read that again. The part that feels like nothing is where almost everything actually happens in your portfolio. If you live in the middle, you don't just miss a chapter, you miss the entire ending. That excitement seeking, that constant urge to switch, to optimize, to tweak. The truth is, it costs you a house. Not metaphorically, literally. The difference between a boring investor and an emotionally active one is often a paid-off home. That is what you trade away every time you decide that boring investing simply is not working for you. So the real skill in investing is not stock picking, not chart reading, not spotting the next big thing. The real skill is doing less. Sitting still, refusing to react, turning off notifications, ignoring the noisy news. Patience, it turns out, is the highest paid activity in personal finance. Nobody hands out shiny awards for it. Nobody makes viral videos about it. But it silently outperforms almost everything else you could possibly try. So how do you actually survive the boring middle? Let's break it down. 5 rules. Simple. Boring on purpose. Rule 1. Automate everything, then delete the app. Set up an automatic transfer from paycheck to investment account monthly. Then remove the app from your home screen. Better yet, delete it entirely. Make checking your balance slightly annoying. Friction is your friend. When checking gets easy, panic gets easy. When panic gets easy, selling gets easy too. The best investors are the ones who forget their password for an entire decade. Seriously, that's the actual secret. Rule 2. Measure in years, not months. Your portfolio's monthly performance is basically noise, random static telling you nothing. Reviewing it monthly is like weighing yourself every hour on a diet. You'll go insane and change nothing useful. Zoom out. Think in 5-year blocks. Think in decades. That's the timescale the math actually runs on, friends. Rule 3. 1 annual review. That's it. Once a year, sit down and look at the total honestly. Rebalance if you need to. Adjust contributions if your income changed. Then close the laptop for 12 full months. This one habit alone would save the average investor tens of thousands of dollars over an entire career. Rule 4. Define enough before you even start. Most people never do this. They just endlessly want more. Always. More is not a plan. More is a treadmill. Sit down and write a real number, not fantasy. What amount of money invested would actually give you the life you truly want to live? Be specific. Once you know that number, everything becomes calmer. You stop chasing. You stop comparing yourself to everyone else. You start walking toward a specific destination instead of running from a vague, formless fear. That's real freedom. Rule 5. Swap novelty for identity. This is the one nobody talks about, and honestly, it's the most powerful. Stop trying to be exciting, stop trying to be clever. Instead, become a very specific kind of investor. Tell yourself, out loud if needed, I am a long-term investor. That's who I am, that's what I do. When the market crashes hard, that's who I am. When the market rips higher, that's still who I am. When your cousin brags about crypto gains at dinner, that's who you are. Identity beats motivation every single time. Motivation runs out somewhere in year 3. Identity, when built right, lasts 30. That's the actual difference. Boring rules beat clever tactics every time. Every backtest in history says the exact same quiet thing. The people who do the least with the most consistency over the longest time quietly always win. It's almost embarrassing how simple it is, and it's almost tragic how few people can actually do it. One more trap catches people right at the finish line, because here's what most people don't realize. Even if you survive the boring middle, even if you make it through the long dead zone, even if you slowly build up a real portfolio, there is one more mistake still waiting for you. It's called the last mile mistake, and this quiet, patient trap catches actual winners, not just eager beginners. You'd think that once you've done 22 years of the hard part, you're finally safe. You're not. Some of the biggest financial blow-ups happen in the final stretch, right when people are about to retire. They see the finish line and suddenly get greedy, or suddenly get scared and pull back everything. They shift the portfolio at the exact wrong time. They pull money out at the exact wrong moment. They forget the sequence of returns, the order in which your good and bad years actually happen. That sequence matters enormously the very moment you start withdrawing from your portfolio for actual, real income. A crash 5 years before retirement hits differently than one 5 years after. Same percentage drop, radically different outcome. Because now you're not just watching the balance, you're actually eating from it. This is sequence of returns risk. It's the reason people who did everything right for 2 decades can still stumble right at the finish line. We'll get deep into that in the next video, because honestly, it deserves its own full conversation. Before you go, one small ask that keeps this channel going. If the middle finally made sense. If you see the boring middle not as a problem, but as the point, subscribe to Andy Explains Money. Next video, how to survive the last mile without giving back the fortune you spent 20 years building. Want to understand how money really works? Keep making smarter money moves? Subscribe.